This presentation discusses the endocrine organs, the hypothalamus and pituitary glands. The hypothalamus is located within the brain as part of what is called the diencephalon, and as the name implies, it is located under the thalamus. There are many functions of the hypothalamus. These include synthesize two hormones, secrete regulatory hormones, and to control the adrenal medulla. If you have already studied the autonomic nervous system, you know that the adrenal medulla is active in the fight or flight response. Recall that hormones are released into the bloodstream and transported to cells that could be far away from the endocrine organ. In the case of the hormones synthesized by the hypothalamus, they are made but not released into the general circulation. These two include antidiuretic hormone and oxytocin. The regulatory hormones include gonadotropic releasing hormone, thyrotropin releasing hormone, and corticotropin releasing hormone. When you see the suffix tropic or tropin, that means that the target organ is another endocrine gland and it is being stimulated to produce its hormone. So for example, a hormone called gonadotropic hormone targets the gonads, which will then begin to secrete hormones. The hypothalamus also controls the release of epinephrine and norepinephrine from the adrenal medulla. Because they are coming from an endocrine organ, they are acting like a hormone. But if they were released by a neuron, they would be acting like a neurotransmitter. The pituitary gland hangs down from the hypothalamus by a stalk called the infundibulum. Here you can see the hypothalamus. This structure here is the pituitary gland. The structure connecting them is called the infundibulum. Within the infundibulum is a special circulatory system called the hypophyseal portal system. This carries blood and hormones back and forth between the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is sometimes called the hypophysis, which is what gives the hypophyseal portal system its name. Remember that it hangs from the hypothalamus, and it is protected by the sella turcica, the saddle within the sphenoid bone. Here is the sphenoid, and this area here was the sella turcica. The pituitary gland has two lobes, an anterior and posterior lobe. The anterior lobe is sometimes called the adenohypophysis. Adeno means gland, usually an endocrine gland. And the posterior lobe is called the neurohypophysis. I will discuss the posterior lobe first. There are two hormones released from the posterior pituitary. These are the two hormones that were made in the hypothalamus and traveled here to the posterior pituitary by way of the hypophyseal portal system to be stored until needed. They are antidiuretic hormone, or ADH, and oxytocin, OXT. The word diuresis means the formation of urine. You may know someone that is on a diuretic medication, usually for high blood pressure. Or you might have been told at some point that caffeine is a diuretic. In any case, a diuretic increases the formation of urine by the kidney. So the antidiuretic hormone would target the kidney tubules and cause the retention of water. This in turn decreases the amount of urine formed. Oxytocin is produced in both men and women, but more is known about its function in the female system. If you know of a woman who has had labor induced, they are usually giving the drug Pitocin. That is a synthetic version of the natural oxytocin. So the target cells are the smooth muscle cells in the wall of the uterus, and also the mammary glands. This will promote labor and delivery by causing the uterus to contract, and it promotes the milk ejection reflex when nursing. The anterior lobe of the pituitary produces and secretes 6 hormones. These have many targets and functions. Some are fairly simple if you think about their name. For example, thyroid stimulating hormone, or TSH. Its target cells are in the thyroid, and it causes the thyroid to start production and secretion of its hormones. Earlier, we called it thyrotropic hormone. The adrenocorticotropic hormone is another tropic hormone. What is it targeting? The adrenal cortex. And because it is a tropic hormone, it causes the adrenal cortex to begin secreting hormones. We will talk about the adrenal gland in a different presentation, but there are different regions, and this targets the middle region of the cortex, which secretes hormones that affect glucose metabolism. There are two different gonadotropins produced by the anterior pituitary, and they are both present in males and females, but they are named for their function in the female. Luteinizing hormone, or LH, targets the ovaries in females and the interstitial cells of the testes in males. In females, a spike in LH causes ovulation and the secretion of estrogen and progesterone from the ovaries. In males, the interstitial cells will release testosterone in response to LH. The other gonadotropin is follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH. Again, it targets the ovaries in the it targets the ovaries in the female and the nurse cells of the testes in the male. Like the name suggests, the ovarian follicles will begin to develop in response to FSH. The eggs are located in the follicle. In males, the nurse cells promote physical maturation of the developing sperm cells. The last two hormones are growth hormone and prolactin. When you think of a person growing, most people think of them getting taller. And it is the bones that increase a person's height, and the muscles attached to them need to keep up. So the primary target cells for growth hormone are skeletal muscle cells and chondrocytes. Chondrocytes are cartilage cells of the epiphyseal plate specifically. This stimulates the cells to grow and divide. Prolactin targets the mammary glands. Lactation is the production and secretion of milk, so prolactin stimulates the development of mammary glands during pregnancy and the production of breast milk. While many believe that the pituitary is the master gland because it produces so many different hormones, the pituitary gland is controlled by the hypothalamus. This control is achieved through negative feedback mechanisms. So the hypothalamus secretes a releasing hormone, for example, thyrotropic releasing hormone. This hormone travels to the pituitary gland and causes the release of thyroid stimulating hormone, or TSH. TSH then causes the thyroid to start producing thyroid hormone. When the levels of thyroid hormones are high enough, they send a signal back to the hypothalamus so that it stops producing the releasing hormone. In this way, the levels of hormones circulating in the bloodstream can be controlled.